I'm delighted to have with me today Nick Miller, the president of Clarity Advantage, the co-founder of Vertical IQ, the longtime architect of the Small Biz Conference, which is one of the best attended conferences for bankers and others interested in the small business universe, and a great friend. And we're here to talk about a conversation that I think could be improved, that bankers may need to pay some more attention to down the road. So, Nick, welcome to this edition of NedTalks.
Oh, Ned, and thank you. Thank you for that very nice introduction.
Well, it's all true. So here's my thesis, and it starts with an article that you actually wrote a little over a year ago that I thought was very thought provoking, and it was the path to business banking trusted advisor. What can business bankers do to be more of an advisor to their customers? And you start off with an observation, which is when business owners have problems, serious problems, questions, they tend to seek advice. One of the areas that we know is a huge priority for a lot of privately held businesses is what they're going to do with their business. If you believe the statistics, and there was a study that was conducted last year, a national study, approximately 75% of privately held businesses in this country plan to transition in some way, either sell all or part of it in the next 10 years. That represents about 4.5 million businesses. It represents about $14 trillion in business wealth. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is I don't think business and commercial bankers are talking enough to their business owners about that particular issue. Why aren't business bankers engaging on this subject?
Yeah, I don't know that there's one reason, Ned. I mean, I think it varies in one sense because they may think that it doesn't lead to a sale. You know, they get rewarded for selling loans and deposits and cash management services and so on. And having a conversation about some event that might happen 3 or 6 or 10 years down the road, why would I bother at this point? I'll wait till it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another reason is time. Even if they want to, these discussions take time. If you open this box, if a business owner is willing to talk, it's likely that it will take some time. And if you've got 5 other sales calls scheduled that day, maybe you don't have the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Another challenge is they haven't set the context or in some cases earned the right to have that conversation. I think that's probably a little less of an issue, but we can come back and talk about that. And they just haven't normalized it. Like it's not a normal part of their conversation. I mean, as a business owner, I feel very comfortable asking other business owners, what are you building here? How do you
Mm-hmm.
see this going? When are you planning to get out? Do you think you'll sell, pass it on? I mean, that's a very natural conversation for me to have as a business owner with another business owner. I don't think bankers, I don't think bankers feel that level of comfort. Um, and from my perspective, if a banker asked me that question, if it were me, that I'd probably give them more of an answer than they really wanted or had time for. I mean, it's something that I've thought about a lot. There are other business owners who may say, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, fine. So you just say, this was why I asked, I get it, and move on and come back to it. I don't think that many bankers have really worked through or gotten comfortable with that.
I think you're right. A number of things I would concur with. One, the time pressures, got to move on, and we've got to meet our goals this quarter or this year. The lack of a sort of a routine around this. The sense that this is an appropriate area for inquiry. I mean, you've spent a lot of time trying to coach people on having good conversations with bankers, and thousands of people have gone through your courses that really help them focus in on business issues. This is a business issue, but it sort of pales, as you point out, because sometimes it's a long-term process. It could take, as you say, it could take 8 or 10 years for somebody to work through the process of ultimately transitioning a business. So
I think
there,
if you set, I mean, we can talk about how the conversation goes at another time, but I mean, if you set a context for this so that it appears normal to the business owner and
Mhm.
it's normal for you, it, I think you can ask the question. It's a little different from saying, what are your end of life plans? that you have to have some trust and some
Yeah.
confidence and some experience with somebody before you ask a question like that. But to
Mhm.
ask a question like, what are you thinking about doing with your business as you grow it? Where do you see it headed? I mean, that just should be a normal routine question.
And at any stage in the evolution of the business, I think, you could be asking that business and should be asking it of somebody who's been in business for 2 years, as well as for somebody who maybe in a family-owned business that's been around for 150. So it's a question that, again, I go back, you use an important term, normalizing this as part of the conversation, being comfortable doing it. There is, as you know, from a credit standpoint, and credit is still a major force in the thought process of commercial and business bankers. There's a risk if you don't know this. If you are not totally clear about what the strategy is and whether they've got a good plan in place. I mean, you may discover in the course of a conversation that your customer's done a wonderful job of planning. Everything is tip-top shape. That might make you feel more comfortable. But if you discover that, for example, the buy-sell agreement has been in the drawer for the last 22 years, you may need to revisit some of these kind of conversations. But there's also the revenue side, and you've always been concerned, as I have, about making sure that people find revenue opportunities in their calling on businesses. What are some of the things that bankers could be foregoing if they don't have this conversation?
That's tough to answer directly. I think, if you've earned somebody's appreciation and trust by asking a question and really exploring with them, what are you trying to build here and how can we help with that? And, they really sense your interest, then you may get more of their deposit business or loan business or their family business or their employees because they like you and trust you and appreciate your interest. It may also give you the context if you understand this is how he or she wants to evolve. This is what it's going to evolve in terms of asset acquisition or whatever. It may give you a window to the kinds of things that a business may need over the next 1, 2, or 3 years that otherwise you wouldn't see or wouldn't see first. So I think if you think about the time frame, thinking about it present to 2 or 3 years, just missing or not being first to understand is a big challenge if you don't ask this question. Um, I think as you think more specifically about a transition, there can be estate planning, succession planning, business valuations, advisory services that jump in at different points, depending on whether a bank offers those services or not. Certainly, that can be referred to other experts to strengthen those referral relationships that can bring revenue. And then longer term, if a bank has the ability to assist with the sale, then they could get advisory fees for that. Um, if the business owner is selling to the employees, there may be loans that go with that stay with the entity. Perhaps the bank would finance the acquisition by an outside party. So I think the importance of asking questions like, how do you see the business evolving? At what point do you think you might want to step away? How do you see that happening? All of the answers to those questions give you a roadmap to the revenue opportunities that are there so that you can then make plans to sequence and come back to those issues when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I like you think that sometimes you stumble on things, but sometimes there's a logic to talking to people early about what their estate plans might look like down the road, because you might be able to introduce them to people that could start to help them think about a financial plan that incorporates a lot of issues. Or if you're thinking about building value in the business, this opens up the door to helping people with bread and butter issues like how do you manage your cash better? How can you work on some of the dynamics of your business? You can talk about a range of things that can actually be very valuable to the business owner. So,
Right.
so I'm going to ask you to put,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I'm going to ask you to put yourself in the shoes of bank management and think make an assumption here that bank management really is interested in this, and they see this as part of a strategy to bank a business through the whole life cycle. What kinds of things do bank management does senior management have to really focus in on at this if they're really serious about this?
I think the first question is really strategic. Do the senior managers see providing some level of assistance or guidance to their business clients about succession as a strategic priority. They offer commercial banking, they offer trust services, whatever they have some set of services they offer solving a particular set of business owners' problems. Do they see this as one of the problems that they want to help business owners solve? And if so, how do they want to do it? Do they want to take it on as an organizational priority, or do they want to leave it to a few heroic bankers to figure out on their own and get good at it? That's the path that I see most banks taking. It's really not a strategic priority. The reason that it's important to think about the strategic priority is that if you really want to be good at this, you have to understand, well, with which types of clients or situations do we want to use these services? Like what are we really doing for whom and when? And what's the revenue potential in that? Really think that through. And then if you're doing more than just, gee, ask that question and then refer them to a CPA or financial advisor outside the bank, which is the minimum, I think. If it's going to be more than that, then there are alignment issues. So, what role does marketing play? What role does wealth management play? What role does the trust department play? How does the commercial team get involved? How about credit policy and credit risk? And if you're really going to think it through, you have to get all of those things aligned. And then what resources do you need? Are you going to have a business resource center on your website? Are you going to have particular people in the bank whose focus is this, or it's a major focus for them? Are you going to develop a network of outside advisors, M&A specialists, valuation specialists, and so on that will be partners with you and are included in your thinking on a routine basis rather than just on an ad hoc basis? So there's a lot to consider there. I think that in the small business arena, people view this as too expensive. Um, so they don't develop their branch managers and small business bankers with these sorts of capabilities because it's just the dollars are too small. The need is great, but the dollars are small. As you move up the chain toward companies that are 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, who are being called on big business bankers, if you're going to do that, you really do need to have internal alignment and more than just a heroic banker to take care of it. And then lastly, and this is the most important part, and it's where you and I overlap a lot. So, what are your sales managers doing? What are your team leaders doing to create strategies for their teams around going after these sorts of opportunities, coaching it, developing their people to do this well, keeping it top of mind? Are you asking those questions? What answers are you hearing? I mean, that sales coaching is where the strategy really gets executed. And so I've made it sound like there are a lot of pieces and there can be, but I think going back to the first one, it is, do you really want to do this? And if so, for which segments of your market? And then who's going to deliver the service? And then I think once those decisions are made, you can go from there.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that have to come together, and I think you're right in highlighting the importance of organizational alignment. When you don't have people who are collaborating on a range of issues, and one of the things that's also got to be part of this is the incentives. The incentives internally have to make sense for people to be fully engaged in this. And I think again, the banks that think through this and are focused on where they can add value will actually be very successful. I have a theory, which is still a theory, that some community banks may be even more successful at this in some ways than some of the larger banks because they can be more intentional and more focused and choose their partners, which is sometimes a challenge when you have internal silos and the like.
I would agree with that. I think it's hard. Banks have struggled to get whole sales forces to execute on their strategies around cash management, which is a deposit and service fee business. Never mind what they might get by having this conversation with their clients. I think your point about credit risk and really understanding the business and the business owner's intentions and plans is a critical part of thinking about your credit risk. So I mean, I think compensation is hard here. You can get, if you're helping a $20 million company transition, there may be advisory fees and the banker gets a piece of that. Great. If you're talking about a $3 million business, not so much. So I think it's hard to change the incentive system for that, but the performance management part of it can be changed. For example, you could set up a standard that says for X number of clients or a particular portfolio of clients, that the standard is that you'll have this conversation with them during the course of the year and with the following sorts of outcomes or results. That's not an incentive compensation issue, but it is a performance management issue. So the point is the bank has to set standards. This is what we expect you to do and how we expect you to do it. And we're going to evaluate you on that. And that will influence the bonus payout you get or the raise that you get, as opposed to the incentive comp that's tied directly to product sales. And I would say for the most part, the banks that I've worked with over time do a lousy job at performance management. They don't set standards. They don't follow up on them. Um, if it isn't tied to the incentive comp system and if it doesn't involve, people turning over desks and spilling the coffee, just egregious behavior, there's not a lot of attention paid to it. And I think that's an area where you focus, and I think that banks will need to focus for this.
I think you're right. And just understanding if we pride ourselves on the relationships we have with our business customers, it really it's on us to be sure that we're accompanying the journey of the people that have been banking with us, and in a way finding opportunities to add additional value. Your the title of your article, the business banker path to trusted advisor. This is one way you can become somebody who's more valuable. You can get a seat at the table as these conversations are evolving. You're a piece in the puzzle, but if you're not at the table, it's going to be very difficult to hold much of a claim on being a real trusted advisor to your clients.
If you can earn people's trust and respect by doing a great job on transactions. For example, getting a loan approved in better than expected time, or handling a loan that had some hair on it, or making a recommendation about a product that would help protect against fraud. I mean, all of those earn you points. And they give you the opportunity to ask more deeper questions. Um, but I think if you, as a banker, go in with the idea that I'm going to do a food chain kind of development here, you miss the opportunity to ask questions like, as I get to know you, I'm really curious, how do you see the business evolving? What does the future look like? Take me 5 years down the road. What would you like to have? Easy question to ask. And I think you can ask that before you've done a terrific job on anything. It's just, I'm interested. I love the painting on your wall. Tell me where your business is going to be in 5 years. You should be able to ask both of those questions with the same ease.
So I'm gonna suggest this has been a fun conversation. I'm gonna suggest we need to have a second conversation, Nick, that dives a little deeper into the actual conversation, and maybe give some tips to people about how they can begin to position it and follow through on it. Because the truth is, as you point out, these are questions that business owners oftentimes are quite interested in talking about, because they are right at the heart and soul of their personal and business futures. So, if you're game, I'd like to hold out for people who are interested in the subject. Round two of Nick and Ned talking about business owners and the conversation involving personal wealth and transitions.
I'm in. Yeah, anytime. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for spending the time here. This has been fun. You've laid a lot of important insights in front of bank management, which I hope will get them thinking about the questions that we're raising. Because, in truth, we both want community and regional banks to be successful. We both want bankers to come away feeling that they really have added value. And I think this is one area where we could do a better job.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation.